I know a number of you who might be joining our call today are not Oracle customers, but I think it's really important to kind of underscore. We talked last month about what was going on at Workday Rising, and this month we're going to talk a little about what happened at Oracle AI World. Really, when you talk about it, it's really when you talk about what's trending in the industry and what's going to happen with finance and transformation writ large and how that relates to AI, understanding where these large conferences are going, it's really important to kind of see where the winds are blowing in those particular areas. As Brian mentioned, we're also looking at how to finish your 2025 strong. A lot of you may have started the year, have some goals on your calendar of saying, "Hey, we're going to do AI this year. We're going to move that ball forward. We're going to automate. We're going to streamline. We're going to do some of those things." Well, guess what, kids? It's almost November, and we need to figure out how to make that work. And so we need to see how do we finish 2025 strong from a transformation standpoint, and how do we move that forward? And then that helps us start to think about how we're going to pivot to next year. And so, how are we going to come forward with what we're going on in our transformation sphere for next year? How do we secure budgets? How do we talk about ROI when it comes to the CFO and bringing those proposals forward? So, with that, trying to give you some tactical tips and tricks to be able to drive those forward today. And so not waiting, not kind of ethereal or anything like that. We're really trying to give you some tactical things you can use today. As always, as Brian said, we'll send you the recording, we'll send you the slides. In addition, I do encourage you to reach out to me, schedule some time. Let's talk about where you're at. Let's talk about how to get those things put together and get those ready for your teams for 2026. So let's move on to Oracle. And so Oracle AI World took place in Las Vegas about a month after Workday Rising took place out in San Francisco. And so Oracle's take, and when we talk about the Office of CFO, of course, everybody's got things on both sides of the ledger, whether it's HCM or finance. And Oracle's take is they rolled out what they're calling their Oracle AI for Enterprise Resource Planning. Pretty fancy name. Workday had some of those too, but Oracle's name here, when you go through and look into what they released and what they put out on their website and through their social media presence and everything else about the conference, and when you listen to it, it's really Oracle is all in on agentic AI for the office of the CFO as it pertains to really driving those areas of business forward. Oracle, I believe at last count, it was 9 or 10 different bots in the finance space that are really the goal of them is to help drive forward value for you if you're an Oracle user in the office of the CFO. This paired up with what we saw with what Workday put out there a month ago, what you can really see the sea change in how these large ERP systems and ecosystems really are thinking about AI when it comes to the office of the CFO. I think the time is rapidly drawing to a close where the office of the CFO is a significant lag on everybody else in terms of the value of AI in their organization. I think Oracle, just like Workday before them, has come to the good realization that says, you know what? All those finance people, they've got a ton of data and it's fairly structured. It's in a good understandable in an understandable format. And so AI works really well for the office of the CFO. And so just to give you a sense, even if you're not an Oracle customer, seeing what's going on in that space and seeing their commitment to moving forward in the agentic AI space is really heartening to see when we talk about finance transformation. All this, and when you think about it from a finance industry writ large standpoint, this is definitely an instance where a rising tide is going to rise all boats. And so what that means is we're all going to have better opportunities to leverage agentic AI. Obviously, we have some great agentic AI solutions for the Office of the CFO here at Auditoria. We're happy to talk to you about those. But when we talk about you being able to run pilots in your organization, you being able to create things kind of in a citizen developer standpoint, there's a lot of great opportunities out there, and they're only going to get better. And so, again, just wanted to share that what we saw at AI World when we were out there. We brought the purple out there. We brought the emoji keychains out into the ecosystem, and so Just like we've done at other conferences. We're out there kind of showing the face and talking to folks about finance transformation. So if we got a chance to see you, thanks for stopping by. If we didn't get a chance to see you there, we hope to catch you at a next event where we might be. So we're going to start off today with one of our poll questions, and this is really starting to think about if you think about AI in your organizations, where are you going with it, right? Where do you think you're going to see some of the greatest benefits, or where are you hoping to see some of the greatest benefits? Let's start there, because as we think about how do we finish strong in 2025 and get ready for 2026, curious to see where people are landing in that particular space. Now, we presented a few different options here. Obviously, this isn't the be all end all of everything that's out there, but it really kind of helps you understand where people are leaning in that particular space. So, give everybody just another moment, but so some good answers there of the people who are participating. So we'll go ahead and share those out to everybody. And so you can see about half of the people who are here are really looking at kind of that financial close and reconciliation space, which is a great opportunity because AI is a fantastic tool when we think about how it's going to go out there and match up information, understand where there's potentially some anomalies in that space. And so financial close and reconciliation, both from an acceleration of manual tasks as well as that an analysis of information, it's a great opportunity to help reconcile those, bring those forward. Budgeting, forecasting, and planning, right? Most of us are in or are maybe even hopefully through the budgeting cycle for 2026. And so that forecasting, planning, understanding where we're at, reading variances, looking at those pieces, that financial analysis is a huge piece of what we're doing. Insights, decision support, AI is great at this because you as a human being will likely get to some of those same answers. It's just the AI tools are going to be able to bring that to you so much faster than what we're looking at today. And then with risk compliance and audit, anything we can do to help streamline the explainability, the transparency, and understandability of AI tools that you're using in your ecosystem, it's going to help reduce your compliance overhead, as well as if you can explain it and your audit team understands it and everybody's good with it, it's going to reduce kind of some of your audit burden as well when you need to go produce those audit resources. So good, a great start to kind of as people are thinking about where they're going in that space. And so let's go ahead and kind of move on there. So as I mentioned, welcome to the fourth quarter of 2025. It's almost November. Not to panic you, and while the year is quickly almost over, there's actually still a lot of time to get some pilots running and see some success this year. And some of you are like, "Yeah, cool, that's nice. What do you How do we get there? Where do we go from here?" Again, this is a great opportunity to kind of dig in. Give me a call. Let's talk. Let's have some conversations. But what I wanted to do is today give you a couple of ideas of where you can go, and then I'm actually going to walk you through one of those on how you can actually start that pilot today and realize it doesn't take a whole lot to get started, and it doesn't take a whole lot to kind of move you in that general direction to start to prove some value to then think about, do we want some larger AI initiatives for us? Kind of we prove the pilot, prove the proof of concept, and then be able to expand into some other areas. So let's talk about what we can tactically do now, today. You can hang up this webinar and start today of how you move that forward. So here's some ideas. So think again, we're kind of up against the clock here. The calendar isn't our friend. Look at our man here. He's a little relieved. We have some ideas what we can do. So let's start by prioritizing some low risk AI pilots. This is not the time to think audacious ideas for the end of 2025. Think of some processes that again you can hit up pretty quick. So invoice routing, how do we move those through? Some of those are going to be simple as thinking about how you can tweak some of your ERP rules, whether it's Workday, Oracle, wherever you're at. Can I move those around to allow maybe some touchless invoice processing or let it do some automated matching? Again, these are tools that you already have access to within your ERP ecosystem. But again, what that allows you to do is if you were to turn that on and you let those run through, you can say, look, it used to take me X minutes to look at those things on an invoice. And now, because I'm allowing the routing and the automatic routing of things to go through, it's now down to this particular amount of time. I don't have to spend time on these. Now, there are some great AP invoicing solutions like what Auditoria has and some other ones out there, even some built into your ERP ecosystems. But those are probably some audacious, kind of some big picture pilots that you can start down the path of those now, but you might not get those up and running and proving value in 2025. Great opportunities for 2026, don't get me wrong, but those are some ones that you may want to think about. Let's do some stuff that's kind of some simple level pieces to it. Cash application, right? Understanding where your money is, where it goes. Are there automations that we can do to understand, to maybe log in and pull down some information, maybe some quick integrations or some information I can have my bank send me on a regular basis. So I understand where those are at in my ecosystem. Accruals is one of those things that that can be one of those things that some teams take up to 3 days to figure out once we start our period end close, our month end closes. And so can I find ways to maybe auto generate some emails out to people? Maybe I'm going to use like Power Automate, or some of the Microsoft tools if I'm a Microsoft shop, or maybe I can build something within Gemini real quick to maybe do some automated reach outs on my accrual space. Again, there are some great tools. We have some that can help you with accruals. But again, a time to value 2025, quick, get it in, show some value. Those are some great opportunities. And forecast refreshes. How do you go pull that information? How do you put it together? Are there ways to kind of make it like a almost like a macro based, ingestion of tools where you're able to then go read from your systems of record in a more quickly fashion to forecast. Maybe you're kind of forecasting, you're pulling that data onto some pages in Excel. Again, every finance member's favorite tool. Can I pull some stuff into Excel, hit some refresh, and it's generating some charts for me. It's generating some things for me. Again, you're talking about some process automation. You're talking about some streamlining. Again, these aren't the big, giant, whiz bang, full on AI suite applications, but these are some ideas of pilots you can do to show the value of automation in your organization. Low code, no code tools, quick setup, measurable outcome, minimal IT dependency. These are going to be, again, your power automates, if you have Microsoft Copilot, again, you have an AI tool in your ecosystem that you can use with your data. So again, those are tools you don't have to figure out. I don't have to know Python code. I don't have to know any of that piece, and I can move those forward. And most of those aren't going to require you to go through a heavy duty cybersecurity evaluation to be able to bring those forward. Start with a couple of pain points, a main pain point, not the tech, right? Let's talk about what is my problem. I want to be able to streamline my processing of invoices. I want to move this forward. Pick one or two of those things, and then let's work through that, right? And then you can show those time savings really within 30 days. You can show kind of a close over close cycle. Those are some areas or opportunities that you can move forward, and then measure it and tell people about those wins, those hours you saved that I didn't have to do that on my own, how much more accurate something was because I used an automation tool, or how much faster was I able to go get those accrual that accrual information so that we were able to close faster, or maybe your cycle times are in terms of your processing speed. And so again, measure those things, think about what you can do, some pain points, and let's move that forward. So I said, I'm going to give you an idea of how to walk through one. So here's an example. Remittance matching, and you have to go through and do it manually. And it's dragging down your day sales outstanding, your DSO, and keeps your staff into spreadsheets. Again, I understand we're finance. You can have our spreadsheet when you pry it out of our cold, dead hands. But in the meantime, we do need to be faster. And those of you who have to deal maybe on the AR side of the house, understand that day sales outstanding is a killer for your business. That's your money in somebody else's pocket. And so you want to find an opportunity to get that money back into your pocket as fast as you can. So here's an idea on how to do kind of a quick approach to show some value in a quick automation pilot. So wherever you're pulling your AR data from. So let's think about your ERP. It might be Workday, Oracle, SAP, NetSuite. It doesn't really matter. So you export what's out there, what's open. So again, what's factoring into your DSO today. Think about that as you bring it in together. So then what we're going to do is we're going to have essentially flat files. We'll probably have it in a CSV file, or we're going to have it in an Excel spreadsheet, whatever the case might be. Maybe tab delimited. Again, it doesn't necessarily matter per se, but you need it in a format that you can work with. And then, if you've ever tried this, you'll have seen it. So, if you have any sort of kind of AI or ML matching models, so here's where some opportunity that you may have again the Power Automates of the world. You may have some Copilot. You may have Gemini. You may have other tools in your ecosystem today that you can basically upload these two kind of sets of documents into it and say, hey, can you do some comparison? Or if you're an Excel magic genius, right? I was never, but I knew some people who were. And so you macros in Excel, you'll be able to like drop something on spreadsheet one, drop something on spreadsheet two, and then spreadsheet three is a whole big compare exercise. It's all some magic X lookups, and you're all great with that space. Those are some great opportunities. Again, that's nothing I have to go get approval for, nothing I have to go buy, and it's something I have in my ecosystem today that I can use to do that automated comparison instead of me doing it manually. Again, what we're trying to show is quick time to value for automation. So then you look at it and say, okay, how much was I able to do? How much auto matched versus what I would have to do manually? Think about the time it took me to kind of set it up, drop it into these tools, and have it do a comparison versus me having to manually go through and look at that. So again, you get to talk about that value in that space. Now, you may or may not be able to use that to see direct DSO value right away. But at a minimum, you're able to say, here's the cycle, here's the time it took us to produce that document versus here's the time of what it did before. And that time saved equates to real dollar value in FTE savings. And again, it's not necessarily that you're trying to reduce headcount. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're able to show that time and show that value in that particular instance, that's going to allow you to then go to your leadership and say, look, if we invest some time and we do these as some actual projects, it doesn't require a whole lot of money. We're gonna really see what that looks like. And saving this much X amount of time over 12 months, that's going to result in us freeing up X, Y amount of headcount that's we can repurpose to other projects or other tools. So again, everything's I have these obligations. I got to go get this stuff done. I have goals, and it doesn't have to be crazy difficult. It doesn't have to be hard. And so there's a lot of opportunities to really think about some of those tools that are out there that you can go look at today to be able to kind of drive that forward. So again, just think about what is it around that you might be able to look at today to be able to kind of drive that value, prove that, hey, you have some people really on the fence. They're not sure automation is going to work. This is an opportunity, again, low risk, not a lot of effort for you to prove the automation case for everybody else. And so once people kind of go, oh, I get it. And now they can say, all right, well, let's try it over here or let's try it over there. And now again, this is kind of your citizen kind of grassroots effort in automation. And then when you realize, oh yeah, we're seeing the value of that, that's when we can come in at Auditoria and we can talk about some of the great tools that we have at scale to automate entire processes and business processes that you have to be able to really see and talk about the ROI value there. So again, just an idea of some way to get that done. So if you're staring down the barrel at a goal for 2025, you haven't done it yet, you haven't gotten a chance to work on it. Now is the time to move. So get moving. Again, an idea, take that, run with it. Have a good time with it. You'll learn some stuff as you try and automate through these different examples. So it's a great opportunity there. So we're going to bring up our second poll question, which is starting to think about, okay, what is that priority, right? What is that priority in 2026? Is we're going to think about starting to pivot out of the 2025 space and into the 2026 space. What is it that I might want to start looking at for 2026? Where do I want to go? And so this is thinking about your goals that you may have started writing these for 2026 yet. You may not have done any of it yet, and that's okay. But part of this is starting to think about where do I really need to go in 2026? Where's my leadership expecting me to be? Where do I want to be? Where does my team want to be? And so what's our kind of top priority in that space? So give folks another moment to answer there. All right. So we'll go ahead and share out our answers there. So no surprise, half of you are in that automating manual task space. Again, this is a great opportunity when you think about, many of us are part of organizations that are growing. where and as you see what's going on in Wall Street and others, you can see just the mergers and acquisition activity is nonstop. And so a lot of us are growing through mergers and acquisitions. And a lot of times you probably know this if you're in this space, but when those mergers happen, they're not saying, "Oh, hey, great, we have five people on the AP team now, and now we've merged and we've doubled our volume. So you know what? Let's put five more people on the AP team." Doesn't happen, not going to happen, never going to do it, right? So what's going to happen is you now have all this new volume and the same size team. So the only way for you to move forward, because just adding more headcount isn't scalable, it's not tenable, you can't keep doing it. So automating those manual tasks is critical. And so we really should have a conversation about that. So if that's kind of where you're going in 2026, we're going to talk about how to build those business cases here in just a second. Improving decision making, great opportunity to look at all of the data that you have and how do I make that better. And so AI is a great opportunity to help you, again, not to make the decisions for you. Humans in the loop are always going to be important. You're always going to be the one that has that strategic lens, but AI can come through and give you all of the information you're going to need to make that decision. And so it's a great opportunity to move that forward. And then a business case for AI investing. Perfect. You're in the right spot. We're going to kind of move those forward. So thanks everybody for jumping on the poll today. We're going to go ahead and move forward a little bit to talk about 2026. So let's think about how. Now, I have some ideas here, and some of them are related to the poll question you just saw. Spoiler alert, right? But some of them are just kind of, as you think about it. But this is not necessarily the be all end all list of all the areas that you could look at when you think about how do I want to automate in the office of the CFO. So, as some of you talked about that end-to-end process automation, and so what do I mean by that? Well, for example, let's say we talked about invoice ingestion earlier. So instead of an invoice coming in and my team having to pick that up, read the invoice, look at it, understand it's an invoice for what company, and then start to parse out the information and start to grab the coding or other things that I'm going to need for my ERP system, and then manually ingest that into the ERP and get that ready to go, and then have it go through my routing and approval rules. Well, that's fine, but wouldn't it be nice if AI could do that for me? And so that's a great opportunity to think about, okay, that's an area we want to focus on. Or manual email task management system. I'm sure if we took another poll, we didn't write this one up for today, so I'm not trying to get Brian to do another poll question right away. But if we took a poll question, I'm sure about zero of you decided, you know what, I want to go into finance so I could read emails all day long. And you're like, that's my day. I read emails. None of you signed up for that. And nobody wants that to be their life. So, how about we automate through that? How about we let some AI read the intents of what's going on in those emails? And how about it allows me to, again, respond back in a way that's, those low value, low risk emails, why not let AI respond back to it? Again, templated, not making stuff up. This isn't hallucination time, but it's an opportunity to kind of say, look, just handle those inquiries, kind of move that back forward. This one kind of, so again, think about those focus areas. That kind of moves into that second one, that inquiries, data matching and follow up. So if somebody says, hey, can you send me a copy of my bill in the AR space? Well, why are you doing that? Why are you spending that time? If we can validate that it's reasonably, I know this customer, I know who they are, they have a valid bill, they've asked for it. Why not let something respond back automatically for them? So that's a great opportunity to think about, well, gee, if I don't have to do that in my group and my team doesn't have to do that, how much time is that going to save you? How much effort is that going to save me moving forward? And so it's a great opportunity to think about the value there. And then embedding AI into everyday finance processes, that's a great opportunity just to think about, this is, we've kind of moved into this age of AI, and kind of the golden age of AI. And so it's, there's a lot of people are finding value in a lot of different ways. This is a way to think about how can I use AI on a regular basis within my group, within my organization. Now, again, we're not saying, let's go grab Chat GPT and say, hey, Chat GPT, or I call him Chad. I say, hey, Chad, go gin up a budget for this year, right? I'm not asking it to just kind of make stuff up throughout the year. But here's the thing. If I want to talk about, hey, I've done some maybe I'm in the FP&A team and I've done some analysis for one of my business customers across my organization. And I say, you know what? I want to paint a compelling story about what's going on within their group, what we're seeing in trends, what we're seeing in variances, whatever the case may be. Well, you can use AI to kind of help you, like you build a prompt at this point. You kind of say, hey, help me build a story around X. And it's going to kind of help you tell that story in a little bit more compelling manner. Now, I will tell you, sometimes when you go into AI and it may not write how you want it to, but that's part of the prompt too. So that's part of thinking about it. How do I want that prompt to go? Or, tell my I want you to believe that you are a strategic finance leader at this point, or a CFO level person, or a business leader in certain areas. Write me this information. Again, it's not to say you can't get there. It's not to say this is magic, but what AI can do for you is accelerate that first draft, and then now you can work through it. So the time it takes you to kind of come through writer's block and figure it out on your own, you're well beyond that. You're able to kind of put that together, and now you have an opportunity to kind of refine it and then send it out. So again, just an idea of how you can embed AI into your finance processes. The other thing too is when you take data out of your ERP system, so you're doing some research, you're looking at things, you can take that data and say, you know what? Instead of me doing some pivot table magic, we'll let the AI do it, right? I don't have to work on that. Let me drop that into my AI tools and bring that forward. So again, bringing AI on to help with that automation, if you don't have it today, a great idea to focus on an opportunity in 2026. So, but when you bring that forward, you're going to need to say, I want to do this in an automation. This is my focus. This is where I want to go with it. The second thing is you're going to need to have some finite goals of what you're going to measure as part of it. So again, when we think about goals, again, this isn't necessarily a finance conversation, but think about goals and think about what we used to call, we talk about all the time, smart goals. You want to build your smart goals for your transformation activities too, because it's got to be specific. You got to be able to measure it. You got to understand what's going on. Can I take action on it? Is it reasonable? And it's time bound. And I'm going to work through it. And so it's a great opportunity to think about your transformation goals in the same way you think about your own goals on a year over year basis. And so it's a great, just think about that as you move forward in this space about how you can move that. So I want to reduce by X percentage my manual touch points. I want to shift X amount of time from manual to meaningful work. That's why I always talk about with you guys. Add automation milestones in your business case too, because this is understand day one. You start a pilot today and you go to say, okay, we're going to turn that on. You're not at full scale yet, right? You're working up to it. And so think about as you think about that business case, what are some milestones? Like, hey, when I do this initially, I think we're going to be able to like say we're going to do manual touch points, right? Maybe that's one of the goals we're going to go at. I think day one, we're going to get about 10% of these down. And then as we get comfortable, so like by day 90, maybe we get to 20%. And by day 180, we're going to be, let's maybe we're at 50%. So again, you get to build those kind of check gates along the way, which help you as you're working on your implementation of your new goal, your automation goal and your new automation project. You get to have those check gates. And when you hit them, you guys say, okay, great, that's great. Am I above, back? But if you don't make it, well, let's recalibrate then. Let's think about where we can go. Let's make sure that our initial assumptions about these goals are still correct. And are there some course corrections we need to make in how we're doing it? Maybe how our data is structured, all of those things. Again, all the stuff, happy to work with you guys on to think about how to bring that forward. But it's just some opportunities to move that. And then the most important thing is this one. How do I go to my senior leadership and talk about the return on investment? How can I prove to them that my return on investment for these AI initiatives and this investment in AI is going to be worth it? So again, if your goal is I want to reduce those manual touch points, I want to reduce those different pieces, efficiency gains are an awesome one here, where you say, okay, I was able to reduce in this particular effort the amount of hours we spent on this particular task. Because we reduced X amount of hours at a rate, like a fully loaded FTE rate, again, you do some back of the napkin math. You say, okay, here's what I kind of figure, maybe here's what we pay the average salary for the person here. You add a little bit on for some benefits. Again, kind of a fully loaded benefit cost. You're not quite sure what that is. Talk to your FP&A folks. They're gonna do that for budgeting all the time. So you're gonna have something in your company to kind of know roughly what that's gonna cost. And then break it down. Figure out what does that hourly cost? Easy rule of thumb is think about that whatever you're charging is everybody's going to work about 2,000 hours a year. Which makes it really easy when you think about it. Say, okay, the total amount I'm paying this person, basically divide it by two, and again, drop the three zeros off the end of it. So let's say you're paying somebody $70,000 a year, or $70,000 is your all-in loaded benefit cost. That's $35 an hour on average. Again, it's not exact, but again, just to help you do the math, to be able to talk about these ROI measures with your CFO, it's just an easy way to kind of bring that forward. And so again, kind of just, again, back of the napkin math, everybody's going to work about 2,000 hours a year. So I'm going to take whatever that fully loaded rate divided by 2,000, that gives me an hourly rate. And so I get to take those hours saved times an hourly rate. Now, if you're talking about everything that you're doing from a process standpoint, I can reduce it in terms of minutes. Well, guess what, kids? We take that hourly rate, we divide by 60, and we're at minute rate. And so again, it's not hard to get there, but those then allow you to then project that forward and say, okay, if we are hitting these goals, again, the goals we just talked about here. So what are those milestones in that automation space? When we hit those goals, if I reduce by 10% here, 20% here, 50% here, this is what it relates to in FTE savings. And again, that's not necessarily to mean you're going to remove those FTE from your ecosystem, but allows you to then say, I'm going to repurpose this value, the value of these people to higher order tasks, and I'm not going to have to do these lower levels. So again, just think about that when you talk about reflecting the ROI to your senior leadership. Second one's an accuracy improvements. So how many times do you have to rework something because it's not correct, or you have to go back through and look? We've talked to some prospects and some customers about where they're at in a manual space right now. The that it's that when they think about it, and they're having to go back and do duplicate detection, and kind of recapturing that information, and they're having to go through that manually. Well, look, if we can reduce that kind of rework, that error reduction piece, well, what is the cost of that? How long does it take me to redo that? How long does it take me to put that together? So if you're able to reduce that X number of times Y amount of cost of rework, again, that's ROI. Again, we're not even starting to broach on the strategic level story that you can tell with this, but these are just some ROI measures of kind of how you get to. Now, number three starts to get into the strategic level, right? I'm faster time to insight. I'm increasing my strategic capacity. I'm going from that menial to meaningful work. That meaningful work means I get to work on strategic projects for the organization that are more important to the organization than me doing this manual task. So I get to increase that capacity. Again, this is part of the story you want to tell. My improved forecasting, because I have better data, better quality, better insights, better analytics that come along with it. And then here's another one for you. If I have better working capital visibility, I know when stuff is coming in, when stuff is going out. I know I can reduce my DSO, so I know that my money is in my pocket, not in somebody else's pocket. That's a great opportunity for me to say, look, I can see my working capital better than I was able before. Again, it may not be on a minute by minute, may not be day by day, but if I have better visibility into that, that allows my organization to have the strategic levers to pull to think about where I might want to go in the future. So again, just some ideas around how you can paint the picture of where you want to be in that space. And that's the type of stuff that your CFO, your senior leadership, your controller is going to be really interested. And really, it makes you look fantastic when you bring these ideas forward about how you can save time, how you can save money, how you can repurpose team members, do that upskilling to get into some different areas. And so it's a great opportunity to think about where you go from there. So again, hopefully that was helpful for you to think about, kind of how you might want to look at and start crafting some of those business cases for early part of 2026, and some of the return on investment framework of how you tell that story. Let's talk about the value story of what I want to do. And so hopefully that helps. Again, if you want to dig in deeper on that, that's what I'm here for. That's what I do at Auditoria, is talk about value and return on investment, and some other areas there. So happy to talk to all of you about that. It's top of mind for everybody because you go out and you read a lot of things out there about AI, and one of the number one things you're hearing is everybody saying that we're doing a bunch of AI stuff, but we haven't seen the value yet. Well, I would say there's probably a couple reasons why. One, you're not going out there and looking at AI in a specialized manner. You're trying to apply a general tool to a solution. You know, if you go buy a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail, right? So you don't necessarily want the hammer for every situation. Sometimes you need a screwdriver, sometimes you need a saw, right? So you want to think about AI is not a panacea. It's not a magic silver bullet that you're going to kill the werewolf with here. So think about you're bringing the wrong pilot forward. You're not thinking about it in that space. Number two, you're thinking that it's going to potentially, and again, not you specifically, but just everybody as they're doing these pilots and they're not seeing the ROI, they're trying to say it's going to do too much. Again, AI is not magic. It's going to accelerate your time to value. It's going to be able to move you forward, but it's not magic. And so you need to again think about those clear milestones. Think about those clear goals that you're working through and move towards them, right? And you're put the right AI tools against that particular goal. So those are those two pieces. And then the third one is making sure that your environment is good for that pilot to be successful. And what do I mean by that? Like that sounds very generic, very salesy, very consultancy speak. Yeah, thanks a lot. What I mean is think about the data that you're going to be manipulating. Think about what you're going to be using. Think about the ecosystems you're using. And is your environment ready to take on these additional tools? Like if you're currently having a bunch of notes in an unstructured manner over here in OneNote, then you've got some other stuff in your ERP system, and then somebody's got it on Notepad on their desktop, and then you got some stuff over here in Salesforce. Well, any tool that you bring forward is going to have to find all of that. So you need to think about kind of bringing those together, right? How do we bring that together to be ready to move that forward in that ecosystem? And so if you don't do that first, kind of what we call data hygiene and kind of bringing that together, it's not going to be ready to be analyzed. It's not going to be ready to drive those insights. And so you always want to think about where am I getting this information from that I'm going to use to drive the insights, drive the analytics. And so that's a big part of making sure you're successful. And so, again, what we wanted to do here this month as you're kind of getting ready for the 2026 conversations, how do I get ready? How do I make sure I'm ready to tell the good stories for next month or for next year? Again, happy to talk through that with folks. Set some time, set some meetings up to do that even further. So hopefully that's kind of helped you to give some things to chew on, things to think about in that space. So we'll bring up our third poll question for the afternoon. So if you're already planning to do it, if you're not planning to do it, feel free to select other in this particular instance. What's your biggest barrier? Like where are you getting stuck? Like why are we not, why can't we move forward? Or what are the problems that I'm seeing out there kind of in that space? So a couple people have answered. So this is one too, where again, we're not going to go tattle on you. We're not going to tell you where it's at, because I think the one that I think is kind of have a good amount of answers so far. I think is one of those big ones. I will tell you before we share the results of the poll, the Terminator is not coming to take your jobs. It's not going to happen like that. That's not how it goes. So, all right, we'll go ahead and share these out. And so when people are thinking about it, why am I not getting there? So limited budget or funding. It's a great barrier, but it's also a cool opportunity to think really creatively. Like, okay, I understand we don't have a whole lot of money, but if I can get some low cost or no cost tools that are out there, can I bring them into my ecosystem? Can I talk to my cybersecurity team about saying, hey, look, we don't have a whole lot of budget or resources and funding, but if I bring this tool in, can you help me make it work? Make kind of help me use it in our ecosystem. Skills or team capacity. This is a big one, and I'm going to tackle it kind of from two sides of it. And this is the one I think is probably the biggest barrier to AI adoption. So when we talk about skills, some of it is hard skills. They don't quite know like how do I do it? How do I move forward in that space? Good news is that everybody who's trying to sell you a tool is likely going to teach you how to use it. And I say that, and it sounds somewhat flippant, but they want you to be successful so that you stick with those tools, you stick with those opportunities to move that forward. And so take advantage of those. And many of those things you can start to learn without necessarily even going to buy those particular tools. AWS does a bunch of training. You'll find, again, go out to LinkedIn, go out to some other places. Go ahead, use pull up your old phone, grab your chat GPT and go look at that information and see what's going on out in that space and see what can you find. So that's kind of one flavor of the skills. The other one on the capacity side, yes, we're busy, from that piece of it. So I'll take capacity, I think has two meanings here. So capacity is like what, look, we're just up to our eyeballs in processing things. We don't necessarily have the time. I hear you. It's going to be tough, but this is maybe a great opportunity to say, look, can we sacrifice? Maybe we find somebody who's just really interested in the AI space. Can I give them 3 or 4 hours on a Friday afternoon for a few weeks to try and look up some stuff, figure out some stuff, maybe do some pilots, some of those easy pilots. Can we maybe make a small sacrifice to potentially see some big gains on the back end? So that's one area in the capacity. I think the other area of capacity is actually gets to kind of the fourth one here that nobody picked, but it's change management. I think there's still a general fear about AI in the ecosystem and what is it going to do? What is it going to affect as far as my company goes or my team goes? People think they're going to be automated out of a job, and it's not. That's not the case. I have not seen. Very rarely have I seen where somebody's saying, you know what, this is a reduction in force people play. 99.999 times out of 100, it's, you know what, it would be great if we could have these people doing higher value tasks. And let's get them upskilled, let's get them ready to go and have them do that while we're automating through those other things. So again, that skills and team capacity, it is becoming easier to learn those things that are out there. It's funny. I saw an ad on social media the other day that somebody has now even put out like a Python learning game. And so instead of playing whatever game you're playing, whether it's Candy Crush or whatever the kids are playing these days, if you're not out there playing those games, you can now play a game that teaches you how to code Python, which is super easy. But it's not a hard language to learn. It's not like, programming languages were 15, 20 years ago. But it's one of those things where it's like, huh, they've now gamified learning for AI games, for AI tools. And so that's an opportunity out there. And some of you, again, that other may not be planning, may have other reasons as part of it. So completely get it, completely understand it. So again, appreciate everybody's participation in the polls here. Now, one thing real quick before we get into our question and answers, if anybody has them, Transformation Tuesday next month, third Wednesday of the month, we are going to dive into our sixth annual State of AI Automation in the Finance Office. And so we put out this report every single year at Auditoria. And so this is the sixth time we've put it out. That's why we call it the sixth annual, right? And so it's our opportunity to share some of those highlights that we're seeing. And so you get to kind of see, okay, here's what I'm seeing where I live in my company, in my ecosystem. Well, how does that relate to everybody else? And so we're going to dig in, we're going to pull out some highlights and share that with you next month. And so tune in for that. That's going to be a great opportunity to really dig into that report. Some really cool insights, been able to kind of get early copies of it and take a look there. So do encourage you to think about that in that space. So we'll see you next month for that. And with that, we'll move on to some Q&A. So Brian, any questions that you've seen coming in so far?
Yes, we do have a few questions. We still do have time, so if anyone has questions, feel free to just click the Q&A button at the bottom there and add your questions. So we did get one. It's ROI related. So it is, how long does it usually take to see measurable results from an AI pilot?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think there are some ones that are easier to see. If it's take for example, so here at Auditorium, as some of you know, we offer 7 different kind of tools in a different suite of AI opportunities. And we see that, some of our tools are what we call our AP, our accounts payable, and our accounts receivable help desk. And so many cases, our customers are pretty much buried in email inquiries and adjustments and other things that they're doing. And so for those teams, we take some time to do some implementations, but once we turn that on and they start using the tool, the view to ROI is almost immediately. And so again, that's one area where you see it. The other time, depending on what you've automated, it may be somewhat like, let's say if I'm looking at accruals, well, what I'm going to start to see is my close times start to decrease. And so that's a great opportunity to think about it, probably in terms of 2 to 3 months. You'll be able to see those close times hopefully decrease and bring and kind of bring that in. So I think it can be as fast as a couple of weeks or a couple of months to maybe maybe even longer as I'm doing some other ones. But again, once you set those goals, you'll kind of say, okay, this is the goal of what I want to see, what the ROI should look like in the next couple of months. And excuse me, am I hitting those check gates along the way? So again, the short answer to a long answer there is it doesn't have to take a long period of time to show that ROI. You should be able to realize it pretty quickly. But no, that's a great question. Thanks,
Yeah,
Brian.
good. Yeah, so this is another one we get from time to time from large organizations, which is, are there drawbacks for companies building their AI in-house?
Yeah, so we should probably do a whole Transformation Tuesday webinar on this one. And this is the old build versus buy conversation. And so where do we go in that space? Big organizations and even some smaller organizations for that matter have some really brilliant people who figured out AI and they can go ahead and build that up. One of the biggest things I would say, again, not to make this a giant long conversation or long answer, but when you're talking about build versus buy, some of the models that you can use for language models for that natural language processing and in the AI space can be really generic, right? They're giant language models, your Chat GPTs, your Claudes. Those models that they bring out are huge and they're not domain specific. And so one of the things that people are up against if they decide to go the build route versus a buy route is they're going to be working with a kind of a large language model, which is going to give you kind of large language model information. So this is where, depending on what you're doing, you may not be comfortable dialing into that 75, 80% accuracy with what you're doing. That's where engaging a small language or a specialized reasoning model, like what we use here at Auditoria, can help you dial into that 90th percentile. And so it's going to get you much, much further, 95% of where you want to go. And so that's going to help you understand. So again, not to say you can't get there. Yes, some really smart people, you can go train those models and get there. But finding opportunity to find those specialized models that are trained in the tasks that you're asking the AI to do, that's really where you want to be, I think, especially in the office of the CFO, because we need to be close on to exact as we move forward. So it's a great question. And, a lot of, where's the value in all these tools that are out there versus what I could just go bring up Copilot and gin up an AI agent on my own. Yes, but just be careful and understand kind of the potential limitations of what that AI agent can do because of how it's been trained. So, but that's a great question, and we should dig into that further in some future months.
Cool. Yeah, so this next one you've kind of addressed, but I'll go ahead and ask it in case you had anything to add. So how do you get others on board when they're nervous about AI taking over parts of their jobs?
Yeah, I think again, just as a kind of a reminder, this is another one where you start small, smart, start limited, start in kind of a pilot in certain limited areas. Like for instance, if I'm going to work on automating this particular process end to end, well, let's start on automating these little pieces and then prove that value real quickly and over time. And that's going to be one that'll kind of show, you kind of prove the value, let people see that there's no AI boogeyman out there. There's no the other one that people talk about is AI is going to hallucinate all over the place, and I'm going to have some really weird stuff. It's like no, let's start small. Let's show it. We'll prove the value. We'll show that it's not hallucinating. We'll show it's not AI drift. It's not wandering all over the place. And so yeah, I think that's really the big key to kind of helping get people on board, where you kind of have to prove it to them. You can't just talk about it and speak logically about it. You got to prove it to them. So. It's a great opportunity and just a good question because it's a space where a lot of people are at and they know in their heart of hearts they know AI is inevitable, it's coming, and they know they need to get there, but they don't want to, and or they don't want to make the change. They think it's going to be hard. They think it's not going to work, and they don't want to be the ones responsible. So no, it's an emotional play, and I get it, but the best way is to kind of just show them the proof is in that pudding, and kind of move forward. So, but yeah, so start small and build from there. But a great question.
Yeah. Okay, great. Looks like we do have one more question, and then I think we can wrap up. Do you need IT involved for these kinds of quick pilots, or can finance teams run them on their own?
Yeah, so I think if you're using tools that are kind of already approved for general use, a number of companies have Microsoft Copilot, for example, if they're in an office shop and they use that. So Copilot's there, and the team company's paying for that. So in many cases, you don't need to get IT's approval or involvement to kind of say, I've got access to this data, I've got access to this tool, I can bring those together. Where IT is going to need to get involved is if you need to kind of onboard new tools or potentially have a tool read into and integrate to other systems. That's where you absolutely got to get your IT team involved. And but the last thing, even if you don't have to get them involved, even if it's one of those low code, no code type of activities that are pretty straightforward, it doesn't hurt to get them involved. And let me tell you just real briefly why. If you're able to include your IT team and get them kind of along for the ride, they may have some great ideas about how you can also achieve those same results. Potentially with some other tools they've seen, or they can help you with that. You kind of talk about that data hygiene and kind of that data massaging. That's a great opportunity that you may have some folks who are just magical with data. They can help you with maybe their Power BI space, within your company if you use that. It's a great opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Let me help you put that together and help you pull these data together so that it's clean, so that you can then use it for your pilots. So it never hurts to get them involved, but you don't have to. It's not always oh man, now I have to wait for the IT backlog to get something done. But it doesn't, it doesn't hurt to bring them along for the ride and at least get them kind of enlisted into the goal here. But yeah, if you're thinking about doing something big, like don't go out there and start working through, talking to a new vendor on something about that you're going to buy before you work it through them, because they likely have some AI governance models and some other things that they want to make sure they're working through. So you don't want to run afoul of your IT and cybersecurity team. So again, always a good idea to get them involved, but it's not necessary for every single time.
Great. All right. Well, looks like that's all the questions. Thanks, Mike. I imagine that was very helpful for folks. As a reminder, we'll be sending the recording within the next 24 hours. So if you'd like to rewatch it yourself or share it with colleagues, you can expect to receive that sometime tomorrow. And then, of course, if you'd like to continue the conversation, like Mike said, he'd love to meet with you and talk through, your finance transformation challenges and aspirations. So thanks again for joining, and we hope to see you next month.
Take care, everybody.